Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the EyeTest FC. Goals galore. Cheers.
Cheers.
A total of 31 goals scored this week. 5 games with more than 4 goals minimum. So, Arjun, what's your game of the week?
Tottenham get battered everywhere they go. Tottenham get battered everywhere they go. Everywhere they go. Of course, what a beautiful comeback by Brighton to beat Tottenham.
Yeah, Tottenham pulled off an Everton and bottled a 2 goal lead. But a good start by Tottenham. I think Brennan Johnson, once again, we spoke about him last week as the player that caught our eye. A good start by Brennan Johnson and Madison getting the 2 goals, and what you would thought would have been a composed victory for Spurs quickly changed. I think Mickey Van de Ven and Udogi very, very poor for the first goal. At least one of the two defenders should have cleared that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to be honest, I really like Brennan Johnson, so I will give him credit for having what 5 and 5, 6 and 6 goal a game post Arsenal. But that Madison goal was just a mistake by Verbruggen. Like it's stat padding a little bit. Uh,
Oh man.
but fair enough. I think he scored, and you miss 100% of the chances of the shots you don't take. And he took a shot and he scored. So it looked like a comfortable cushion in the first half. Brighton also didn't really do anything in the first half, but it just felt like completely different game in the second half. And really good comeback by Brighton. It seemed like their fans were on it. A really good movement for all three goals actually, and it just showed their perseverance that the winner was by Welbeck. It was real perseverance to win the ball off the almost when it was out of play, crossed in, and Welbeck had an open header from 6 yards out. So all in all, like
Yeah.
really well done by Brighton. It's actually their first win at home since beating Man United on the opening day.
Oh, that's something interesting. Yeah, a great show of character. Most teams would kind of give up, but this Brighton team kept on pushing and kept on refusing to give up, and in the end got away with 3 points. And speaking of my game of the week, I think in this goal fest that we saw this weekend, my game, and this is where stats, the eye test is so much more important than stats, is my game of the week would actually be a 1-all draw at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest. I think if you saw the game, it was an end-to-end battle throughout. And Forest have, time and again shown that now this season they are in it. They're not going to be a relegation team and they can hang with the big boys. Victory at Anfield and now against Chelsea as well. I think they gave them a real run for their money.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is the story of Chelsea's season, right? Like, I think as a neutral, like watching Chelsea, it seems like they're the most fun team to watch because you never know what's going to happen. They
Yeah.
score 5-6 against Wolves, then they come at home and drop points against Forest. So that being said, what do you think of the red card? I need to start with that.
I mean, the red card was really funny because, like, Subodh Pras was basically swimming and playing basketball together. And he had no reason to do so, right? I think there was a central defender that was coming in. It wasn't like he was completely through on goal. And that just detrimented Forest's chance of, it's actually a pretty great show of character again that they came out with a point. But with that being said, I think the player that caught my eye in this game was Matt Sells, the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper. He made some tremendous saves. Like even at the very end, surprisingly, Mudrik making a great run and then a great cross in, and Jackson had a header, and I think he should have. And Kuku had a header, and he should have scored.
Yeah.
But that was not the only chance. There was another Palmer one, incredible touch and a double save, and he was
Hmm.
on the spotlight throughout the game, and I think he did really well.
Yeah, I think Chelsea have these players, different players who come up, but to get a point at Stamford Bridge, you really need some opposition player to have like a really good game. And usually these teams, which are like due respect mid-table relegation threatened, call them what you want, their goalkeeper needs to have like a world class performance for them to come away with something. And yeah, credit to Forest for a well earned point. Second big away point on the road.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And moving on to a goal fest now, where my team of the week would be Brentford in a 5-3, I wouldn't say thriller, but a 5-3 entertaining game for Brentford, surprising us by scoring in the second minute and not the first. Some late goals for them.
Yeah, they've been playing amazing, right? Like they've started like the season like a house on fire. I have initially in the first episode we did said that they would have a disappointing season, and probably why I'm doing a podcast and not in the touchline because of my opinions. But man, what a great start to the season. And you know what I really like about this Brentford team? Everyone's chipping in. There's no one who I can say, oh wow, they've had like an amazing individual solo start to the season. I know Embuemo has pitched in with a few goals, two identical goals in the first minute in the last couple of games. But man, all of he's chipped in really well, and he's always been an important player for them. I think very underrated player. I think if he like maybe a bit rude to say, but if he had like a little more hair, people would think that he's younger and probably scout him better. Man, because
um,
he's 24 or 25, man. Like, and I think he should be in like a conversation to be, he can play right wing for like Man United, Arsenal, Tottenham, any of these teams. Probably be a Salah understudy as well.
I think if he performs, you've seen this the past couple years, and I think if he's consistent enough this season again, then next summer I think he could very well get that, uh, you know, big transfer. And not even just in England, as you've seen, Olise going to Bayern as well now. Opportunities are plenty. So if he keeps at it, then you never know. But like you said, right, there's no standout performer, and I think that again comes back to Thomas Frank and his management style and just a very set gameplay that he wants to play. I think they could still be better defensively because they conceded the 3 goals. And against City also, they ended up losing the game after playing so well, as you had mentioned. But Thomas Frank at least has his own style of play that he carries out week in week out, and it's good to see teams like Brentford doing well.
Yeah, really good to see. And on Embuemo, like I think he was even close to moving out of Brentford this summer. I think they didn't want to lose both Tony and him, because I heard on deadline day when Arsenal couldn't get their first choice wingers, and they ended up with Sterling. But I think I heard that Brentford's Embuemo was a possibility.
Damn. And speaking of the team itself, what did you think about Arsenal's performance against Southampton?
Man, what can you say? Kai Havertz on the verge of breaking a record held by Van Persie. I think it's now equaled for most consecutive goals scored at the Emirates, and one of the best, cleanest strikes I've seen from Kai Havertz outside the box in a game where Arsenal really needed to come back. And right after going a goal down, he was the one who stood up. So, I mean, even if the stats don't show much in the last few games, I think every Arsenal fan who has watched him play knows what he has done and how he's contributed to the team. Whether it's fighting, going in for those first balls, second balls. There was a moment in the 94th, 95th minute where, he was falling down and he passed the ball to Martinelli or Trossard or someone.
Yeah.
And man, I just love a player like this. And it's so good to see that a player who was ridiculed by large parts of opposition fans, even some Arsenal fans early last season, has now scored more goals than Gabriel Jesus, despite being at Arsenal for a season lesser.
Less. Yeah, I mean, I had said this in my our first episode in the season predictions, right? That Kai Havertz's consistency is going to be very instrumental in Arsenal's season because we had spoken about Jesus's injury record and the lack of that traditional striker who can get goals. And Havertz, at least still now, going into the second international break, has been performing week in week out. And speaking of another player who has been performing week in week out, not just this season but for the past couple years, my player of the week would be Bukayo Saka, pitching in again, playing that creator role with 2 assists and getting a goal himself as well. I think all
Yeah.
round splendid performance by him. And
Yeah, completely agree, Samarth. I think Havertz is my player of the week, as you said. Saka is yours. It's nice to see Arsenal dominate this player of the week board, and I think in the past, Arsenal have past as in last 2 3 seasons. I think Arsenal have always done well against the big six, but uh, or the other five teams away or at home, they struggle in these kind of games. 2 seasons ago, this is the game that lost Arsenal the title. So it's really important that Arsenal win these so-called easy, straightforward games. And I think the game was anything but straightforward. I think Cameron Archer had a very good goal. Raya was couldn't do much for it again. But the way the team came back, the calmness that they showed in doing so, amazing. My only criticism would be that Jesus is starting to, test my patience a little bit. I think he has so much potential. I think he's very highly rated within Arsenal. But if you have to play in the front three at Arsenal, you need to really show with numbers, or at least not even with goals, with assists and chip in. And I think he overcomplicates things. His decision making has really been disappointing a little bit. But I really hope he does improve because he will have a very big part to play this season.
fair enough. I mean, Southampton obviously took the lead, but I think even in the first half, like it was never threatening that Southampton were going to dominate the game. I think Arsenal were very composed throughout and a very well earned victory even after going down. But a team that I would say was not very well composed and did not dominate was actually City against Fulham, where I think Fulham could have easily come away. I think Fulham should be very disappointed that they didn't at least come out with a point against City.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I remember a few seasons ago, Adama Traore, who was playing for Wolves, scored two late goals to beat City at the Etihad. And, at the time I was thinking years ago that, okay, this guy, he finally scored first time in like 50 games in the Premier League. He needs to improve his end product. And man, he had so much pace,
Dude,
in on the right and sorry on the left, and Kyle Walker had nothing against him. So
yeah.
disappointing that he didn't take his chances. I think it could have easily been a Fulham draw or even a Fulham win if they had taken their
Win.
chances.
I completely agree. Like speaking about Kyle Walker again, like the one thing he has pace, and he loses that battle as well. And Traore just can't keep his composure. Even in the first half, he had a simpler chance right in front of the goal, which
Yeah,
he could have easily scored. There were a lot of chances that Fulham did not capitalize on. But a midfielder that did perform really well and is stepping up with Rodri's injury was Mateo Kovacic. Two very well taken goals, and stepping up for his team. And you sometimes need these offbeat players that are not usually going to score goals to step up in these games to get you the 3 points. And
yeah,
I think that's what Kovacic ended up doing for City.
yeah. These offbeat 50 million pound bench warmers who have won
He's
Champions Leagues with Chelsea. you know,
no offbeat in terms of goal scorers.
no,
Like
no,
it's
no.
not
Of
like
course, of course.
you're not looking for that output, like goal scoring output from Kovacic is what I meant.
Yeah, I think he's actually a very good ball striker. I think from his Inter Milan days was a very good like box to box player. But I think you're right. Like the hole that Rodri creates shows that it's not a stable win anymore. It's an
Yeah.
unconvincing win. Like I think Pep was a bit insecure in the press conference as well, saying, "Oh, we still get 3 points for winning 3-2." Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but it just seems like he's also a bit concerned. But I'm going to be very interested to see how City do after the international break, because I'm very sure that they will have some tactical tweaks because they know that Rodri is not going to be available for them for quite a while. But having said that, I think my goal of the week is is actually Doku, and not because it was that well taken, but I think there's this Twitter, a cheeky Twitter page that says he only scores against fullbacks who are over 30, and and Castagna is 28, and I think that was one of the first goals he scored when the fullback is not over 30. So I think for that
Lol.
it was my
That's pretty funny.
my
But
goal of the week.
But no, that would be my goal of the week too. It reminded me a little of, Ronaldo in his United days, where you cut in and just bang it with your laces. Very, very good goal to seal off the victory for City. But I think, we keep mentioning Rodri, but I think they're really craving KDB as well. Because
Hmm.
without that creative output, if I talk about, that's the thing about Erling Haaland, right? That the week he doesn't score, there's absolutely nothing to say about him. Like, as
Hmm.
a player, in terms of even holding the ball down or creating that link between the striker and the winger, or anything to do with gameplay and not
Hmm.
goal scoring, it's just completely blank. And he just completely goes if he's not on the score sheet.
True. Where's the player of the year, by the way? Why isn't he mentioned here?
I
Foden.
think, even with Foden, I think there is something going on between him and Pep. Like, I don't know why, but I think he's not been starting regularly, or like, again, this is just me being, a gossip queen. But I think there is something going on between Pep and Foden that just doesn't seem right this season.
Yeah, like I would imagine if your chief creator doesn't start, then you start the player of the year, right?
Exactly, exactly. But I think what was more surprising for me this week, and moving on to my game now, is the Allison injury. Not surprising in terms of that Allison got injured, because we have this every year. I don't know why, with a goalkeeper, we have to deal with a hamstring issue every year. But just surprising in terms of how it happened and how unnecessarily it happened, with Trent playing the ball back and he had to kick it out. I think that's going to be a huge, huge miss for Liverpool, because what we spoke about last week, that they've had a set of easy fixtures, and now as soon as the international break is over, we have Chelsea, we have the Emirates, we have Villa, we have Madrid and City later on. Like, it's a run of some really, really hard fixtures, with Allison gonna who's gonna miss most of them, and that is the one player that Liverpool don't have a replacement for. Like, I like Kelleher, and he, whenever he has to chip in, he does well. But best goalkeeper in the world will certainly be missed.
Yeah, I think I remember Klopp saying Kelleher is the best second choice in the world or something. But I do, of course, notice that there will be a drop off between Allison and anyone else.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to see how Arne Slot plans around it, or if he just says, "I don't care, the team is creating enough. I'm just going to go all in." Season defining month, I would say, for Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, Yaros, he's a young lad. I'd like to give him a shout out, where he came into a very pressurizing situation that Liverpool created on themselves. Again, it was 1-0 by the time Alisson got injured, but Jota had a couple very easy chances. Salah had a volley that, as per his standards, he should be finishing. And the player that caught my eye in that game would actually be Virgil van Dijk. And
Hmm.
I'd like to just talk about the treatment that he's getting, because, like, into October now, and he hasn't put a foot wrong this entire season. He's been
Hmm.
world class in pretty much every single game, and you don't hear anything about it. Like, this week Van Dijk could have easily been the player of the week, but it's just so normalized for him to be performing like this that nobody even bats an eye anymore.
Hmm. Well, question for you, because I don't remember clearly. Uh, who pulled Gehi down in the penalty box?
So, there was a lot of debate about that, I think, in terms of the hand pulling. But even if you see the actual video in real time, the player is never ever going to get to the ball.
Hmm.
And it's not sustained pulling either. It's basically you hold, like, which, and if that was given as a penalty, then quite literally every interaction in a corner in any game ever would be a penalty, because there's
Right.
someone always pushing someone, or there's someone always holding each other. So I do get that that sparked a little bit of a controversy, but the player would have never gotten the ball, and it had no impact on the play, is my
Right.
opinion.
So I would say my surprise of the week, based on what you just said, is the fact that I can't think of any other week this season where referees have not really made a blunder. Right. So I think it's quite consistent for the most part. Of course, there have been one or two decisions that have not been consistent, One was again a situation where a ball was uh, a play was interrupted, and then the referee didn't give an opposing player a yellow card. And the second was this, because it's very interesting. You say, "Hey, yellow card should or a penalty should not have been given for this," because in the Newcastle Everton game, the penalty which was given was absolutely, well, it was fair. So I have a lot to talk about this, right? So this is my play of the week, but from a negative sense, it was my shocking play of the week. Um,
Okay.
Firstly, James Tarkowski. I don't know if he's an England international, but he's been captain of Burnley. He's now captain of Everton. Experienced seasonal defender, right? No nonsense defender. He just rugby tackled one of the Newcastle players to bring him down the box. The ball was nowhere near him. It was a free kick. It was a direct free kick that went like to row Z, and VAR brought the play back and gave gave Newcastle that penalty. Absolutely ridiculous, first of all, to even think of doing something like this in a big game at home. And then the second sequence after that, which was the penalty, a lot of Newcastle players could have taken it, and then it was so poetic that the
Anthony
entire
Gordon.
Goodison Park was booing Anthony Gordon in front of Gladys Street, and then he just has such a weak penalty. You could even feel when he was taking the penalty, right? He was breathing. He was like trying to make his mind up. He was telling himself to calm down, and he just like a weak penalty to the right of the goal, and then Pickford saves it, and then Gladys Street went wild. It ended up being like a good point for Everton, but I still need to say, man, like Everton have so much quality. Like they just had long balls all the time. Ashley Young just kept clearing the ball. It was just sometimes very frustrating to watch. And I know Everton can do better. I know Element and I can be more involved with the ball. I know Dwight McNeil can have better decision making. Like they could have got something more from this game. And at the end it just seemed like 10 Everton players were like trying to play defensive, and this Orel Mangala guy like was just a passenger the whole game, man. Like I was so frustrated seeing him play. I really hope Everton do much better in their next game, because I really want them to do well. I know you
Well,
don't, but
I certainly don't. I certainly don't. But coming to another nil-all snooze fest would be Villa versus United, and that would be my iTest FC play of the week, which is actually surprising because it's not a goal or an assist or even a good all-round play. It's again
yeah.
in a negative sense where there's a clip Villa broke into an attack, and Kobe Mainu, as the defensive midfielder, is running back, and just to see his pace and the lack of energy or the lack of
Hmm.
commitment or whatever you want to call it, is it's just so dreadful. And I had spoken about this at the start of the season again, that you see a United or even an Englishman playing 2 or 3 games well and just getting such unnecessary hype from the English media, and he's just getting found out now this season. I don't think he's had a single good game the entire year so far. And yeah, I mean, United just overall, just a lack of team identity throughout. And I don't want to shit on United every week, but like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, I'll tell you the biggest takeaway in perception, right? Because I completely agree with you. And man, it seemed like a point one for United at Villa Park, and that just seems not good enough for United, right? And the point I'm trying to make about Ten Hag is this was his bench: Delict, Martinez, Casemiro, Ugarte, Xerxes, Diallo, Anthony, Lindelof. Apart from Lindelof and Diallo, everyone else were his signings. That's a
Yeah,
good 300 million pounds worth of talent of his own signings on the
on
bench.
the bench. Yeah.
And how can you go to Villa Park and not have half of your or most of your best signings there? It's just
Yeah.
incredible. I don't understand the team selection. I'm perfectly happy with it because United are struggling, but I don't understand, man. They're not. I see flashes of them really playing out from the back and doing well, even one or two sequences where United did well, but I was just bored watching United.
Yeah, other than the Bruno free kick that hit the post, right, there was no spark of creativity at all. And if you ask me, like you exactly said, I think it was a very poor result for Aston Villa side that have just gone and beat Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
So I think Emery's men are in red hot form, and I think they'll probably look back at this result and think that, like, we just drew against Man United. And just to put it into perspective of where Ten Hag's team is, it's just really sad. Not really for me, but for them.
Yeah, and you know what? This is like in like injury hit Villa as well. Like I remember the commentator mentioning yesterday, but off the top of my head, Konza, Mings, Onana, like three first teamers were like, and Konza and Onana would have started the game. Like Konza got injured during the game. Like they had a injury hit team, had a point at home against United, and felt disappointed. I think that just shows how much both teams have come in the last few years. United like regressed, sorry. But yeah, I mean, I'm really disappointed with United. I really think that they have flashes of brilliance, but they can really do better.
Yeah, let's see how he uses the international break to, kind of rejuvenate the squad. But I think that wraps up this game week. Other than that, we had West Ham with a splendid display against Ipswich, blowing them away 4-1, and 3 points for Leicester against Bournemouth.
The international break coming up. Stay tuned for more episodes of the iTest FC. We have a lot more exciting things coming up in the pipeline. So stay tuned and keep watching. Have a nice international break, guys, and see you Premier League fans next week.